Alright, we're having a look at the Axe-Fx 3 Marshalls even more, and this is one segment I like to call Pimp my Marshall, because what we're going to do is just take the standard Brit 800 model. You can see the way I've got it dialed in at the moment. I've got this York Audio V30, which is a stock cab, 57 on a V30, pretty simple, and the Brit 800, so it's all very bright at the moment. I'm playing this STR LJ1, P90 in the neck, humbucker in the bridge for a couple of different tones. So what I want to do is have a look at how we can mod this amp. As you probably know, in the real world, the JCM 800 is a very popular amp to serve as a platform for a lot of modifications. Several high-profile amp builders got their start basically modding these amps. So, and a lot of the, boutique-y kind of Marshall clones are basically just modded JCM 800. So we're going to take the Brit 800 and we're going to have a play around with some of the advanced parameters in the Axe-Fx 3 to mod this amp. And then you can save your favorite Marshall modification in there, which is a lot quicker and a lot easier than if you had a real amp and you wanted to do these modifications. Open the amp up. I always say with these kind of videos, it's way easier than the mods, and you actually don't risk killing yourself by touching a fully charged filter cap or something like that. There's a whole bunch of noise in the street at the moment, which isn't too good, but I hope that's not coming through. Anyway, let's do this. There's a couple of areas I want to have a look at. Looking at this front panel, obviously we've got things like the input boost and the cut and things like that, which I would consider they're just kind of Axe-Fx tone shaping tools. But we do have one here, the saturation switch. So this basically Jose mods your amp. If you don't know what the Jose mod is, Google Jose mod Marshall, because he was famous for his modifications in the 80s, without going into the technical stuff, which I don't know too much about either, but certain diodes somewhere, and it basically gives you that 80s saturation going on. Then in the preamp section, playing around with the type of tone stack that we have, this is super duper powerful. That's one of my favorite mods to do to this amp. Again, if you wanted more of a modded plexi kind of thing here, you can use the 800 as your format and sub in a plexi tone stack, which is exactly what we're going to do. We can also change the preamp tube type, not really a mod, more I'd put that under just sort of maintenance of an amp. And then in the power amp section, there's two things we can do here. We can change the power tube type. You would have to rebias your amp in the real world to do that. And the master volume location, this definitely qualifies as, a classic Marshall mod, because you can basically put this master volume control before or after the phase inverter. There is another option in there for pre-triode, but I don't think that sounds as good as pre or post. So that changes the behavior a lot. And you can also play around with the negative feedbacks. Several amps like the Friedman amps and the Cameron amps play around with the negative feedback in their Marshall modifications. So yeah, that is gonna be the lay of the land for this video. So at the moment, this is what this amp sounds like. As I said, it's pretty bright. I might turn the input drive up a bit just to get some more crunch going on the bridge pickup. So that sounds pretty good. Let's have a listen to what the saturation switch does. If I turn this to on, it is going to behave exactly the way it would in the real amp, which is going to lower the volume. So if I just flick that on, we get this. And that one's really, really nice. Again, it's not just adding gain, it's changing the whole character of the amp. It's making it darker, and it's making it obviously more saturated, but it really gives you that kind of 80s hair is the word, you know, it gets really kind of fizzy and in a kind of nice musical way as well. It really makes you want to dig in with the pick, and you know, essentially that saturation switch, everyone in the 80s was chasing that Van Halen brown sound, so that's kind of what it does. It adds that 80s hair to everything. So another way, you could see that I was tweaking the master volume trim, because the saturation drive is going to mean that the overall level of the amp goes down. You can use the master volume trim to compensate for that, or you can just use the ideal mode, which is not going to mess with the volume. It really adds a kind of nastiness going on there, and you know, the Cameron Atomica and the Cameron CCV use this to great effect, which is why those amps, you know, sound awesome for 80s tones and for modern tones. They got that nasty thing going on. So in the preamp section, changing the tone stack, this is so powerful. So my favorite one is to change the JCM 800 tone stack to a plexi tone stack, and there is, well, we don't want to mess around with the tone stack location. That would be like a different kind of mod. I won't talk about that one now, but you know, if we just basically go plexi tone stack, this is what it does. So just flicking through the tone stacks there, you can hear that the Plexi tone stack and the JCM 800 tone stack sound really, really similar, but this Plexi 100 watt is really different. So because we've changed the tone stack, we want to dial the amp in differently. Let's do Plexi style settings on this thing, which is basically turn the bass down, turn everything else up. That's cool. That is really, really cool, combining those two mods together. So I really like that Plexi 100 watt tone stack. You could hear there that I tried a bunch of different ones. So experiment with this. This is part of the fun of having the XFX3 and being able to change stuff like this. Another thing that I like to do, this time in the power amp section, is change the tube type. KT88s are really expensive tubes, but you know, we can change them for free in the XFX3. So let's have a listen. This is more of a subtle thing. This is what it sounds like with 34s. And 6550s sound really cool as well. You can hear in there I tried 6L6s. This is really, really subtle. It changes the feel of the amplifier more than anything else. I'm going to stick with 6550s. I think they feel pretty good. Now we move on to the big one, which is changing the master volume location. If you want your Marshall to just sound like the angriest thing ever, change the master volume location to post-phase inverter. It's going to decrease the level of the amp, so you'll have to compensate by turning the master volume up, not the Don't turn the level up because it'll sound like kind of fizzy and gross. Turn the master volume up because this mod kind of unleashes that master volume control. Oh my god, that is just heinous. That is so filthy. We've got one more mod to look at while we're doing that. I'll leave all of this stuff on because it's kind of fun, but it is the negative feedback control. So this is essentially going to tailor the low end response of your amp. Let's turn it up and find the sweet. That's so much fun to play around with. There's so many options here. There's so many other mods that you can use, and you can use these tone shaping features as well. Actually, one more that I'll talk about that is pretty cool. Again, a lot of these are those sort of like 80s tricks, but they definitely apply across the board for high gain. And you can apply a lot of these tricks for sort of edge of breakup tones or clean sounds as well, and just totally tailor your amp into do whatever you want it to do. Quick recap before I move on though. Saturation switch together with the post-phase inverter master volume, together with changing the tone stack to a 100 watt plexi, together with turning the negative feedback up, essentially you've created this absolutely monstrous modified JCM 800. And one more thing, I mean that sound that I've got dialed in at the moment, I'm not really aiming to get a super dialed tone at the moment. It's more about showcasing what you can do to get different sounds, but it's a little bit low heavy for me. So what I would do, and this is a really great trick, go to the input EQ, set the low cut, I don't know, to about 120 hertz. Even just as a start, that's really cool. It gives you this. But then set the frequency to about 800, peaking EQ, and we just want to add, let's try 6 dB again. And then what I do here is try to make this line essentially a straight line by widening the Q a bit. And you get this. hopefully that's a good introduction to what you can do with just a simple JCM 800 block. We totally turn this into a modified beast. And yeah, that's the Marshall video that I'm going to call Pimp My Marshall, I think. And if you guys enjoyed this and you've got any other tricks or approaches that you do to any other amp block, I like the modified Marshall thing because I think we all know what that sounds like. But if you do it to other amps or you do other tricks, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, pick up some new tricks for myself. And hopefully you guys learn something from it as well. So see you around.